Okay, I'm going to make a start if that's okay. So we are at 1 o'clock and we're having the last talk of today and the last talk in this arena for 2026. Thanks very much for your attendance. This session is going to look at how the work that is being done in Europe and further afield with other colleagues, how that helps and benefits what we're doing here in the British Isles and obviously more specifically in the UK. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Chris Hayes. I'm the Managing Director of the British Swimming Pool Federation, and we do a lot of work either as BSPF or two of the trade associations that are linked to us, so BSPF and SPATA, and this next session is going to explore some of those relationships and the benefits it brings. Things I'm going to discuss are mainly to do with, so when I talk about EUSA or EUSA, is the European Union of Swimming Pool and Spa Associations. I'll talk more about that. WAPSA is the World Alliance of Pool and Spa Associations. And then SEN and SENILEC are the European standards bodies. They're for European norms. And the SENILEC is the electrical standards version of that same organisation. So we'll talk more in depth about those. When it comes to EUSA and WAPSA, we have a connection as a national pool association. So let's start with EUSA a minute. So in case you haven't been on their website, you can see the site there. You might want to go on. But EUSA is a membership organisation. So the British Swimming Pool Federation is part of that. We have 11 other colleagues, so sister associations all around Europe, all of the main ones you can imagine: France, Germany, Spain, Italy, and then many others: Sweden, Switzerland, Turkey, Portugal, New Austria. So there's 12 of us in the group, and we try and meet a couple of times online every year. And one of the main things that happens is there are some annual awards, so the European Pool and Spa Awards, or EUSA Awards, every year. Last year they were in Barcelona. This coming year they'll be in Lyon, and then the following year they'll be in Cologne. So there's an opportunity for companies that win the British Pool and Hot Tub Awards, so the awards that happen here at SPATEX. Those award winners can be shortlisted in the relevant categories. So there's an opportunity not only to get the publicity by being a UK winner, but you can get publicity for being shortlisted into the European awards and then hopefully possibly win. And this last year, happened to be 3 SPATA members. It could have been BSPF. BSPF have been members of one in the past, but 3 SPATA members did pick up awards. So that was great, and the event is very well attended normally, and as you can see, these are all the winners from all over Europe. In terms of the British Pool and Hot Tub Awards, if you're not aware, so BSPF and SPATA members can enter those awards, and then the winners get shortlisted, as I mentioned. Lots of benefits for undertaking the awards, the recognition, etc. But that opportunity to be able to say that you're a European winner, or even you're shortlisted as a European winner, can do a lot for your marketing. A lot more credibility and status by doing that. In terms of the work programme, EUSA isn't just about awards, but again, this is where this is interesting, and there's an obvious question that will come up that I'll pick up, which the work of all of us is to lobby EU institutions, whether that's the Parliament or any of the other standards making bodies. And the reason for that is to promote the wet leisure industry across Europe. And it's very important that even post-Brexit that we do that, because if there are opportunities to ensure that the swimming pool and the wider industry have their voice heard in Europe, when the European legislation is made, it's very likely, although we're separate, we can make our own legislation, it's very likely that a UK government is going to see what's happening in the rest of the continent and think similarly. There's obviously opportunities to diverge, but if we can get it right, if we can get the messages out in Europe, it's something then that we can also lobby back here in the UK so that our government hopefully follows suit with what hopefully has been something that we all agree with. So that possibility is really, really important, and that's legislation. I'll come back to standards because standards are different, but that hopefully makes sense with that. In terms of networking, it's really important. We really value our meetings have been online since COVID mainly. We've had a few face-to-face meetings, but we've gone to online, and the reason they're important is it brings people together, a bit like SPATEX does. You can start talking to all sorts of different people involved in our industry, and by doing that, first of all, it gives you a better understanding of what our colleagues are thinking elsewhere, because although we might share the same desires of making our industry better, different countries view it in different ways. So there's cultural differences, but by having conversations, you get to understand where somebody else is coming from, and that's been really important when I talk about standards in a moment. We don't always get everything that we would like to see when we liaise with our colleagues, but most of the time we do. If you haven't yet been on the EUSA website and you saw the address earlier, there's lots of information that's quite useful. There's only one section of the website that you won't be able to access, which is the members area, and that's for the national associations. But if you wanted to find out who my counterpart was in a different country, you can find all their details in the member section. There's lots of things to do with the awards, huge amounts of information that just may be of benefit. There might be something you really like the idea of and you want to contact them, so you can do that. I mentioned that there are 12 associations, so let's just go on to those. So you'll recognise the flags of most of them. I'm sure I won't do a competition to see if you can recognise them all, but those 12, 9 of them are EU members, and 3 of them, including ourselves, are non-EU members, but obviously part of the wider Europe. And we form the majority of countries in WAPSA. So the World Alliance was formed back in 2017. It's not a membership organisation, it's basically an alliance, it's a network of countries. If I show you the flags of the countries, 20 countries represented, but 19 associations. So you can see the Australia and New Zealand flags, that's one association. So 19 associations, Brazil and Canada, the USA, South Africa, all of those countries assisting us. All the meetings are done in English. Our colleagues are absolutely fantastic with their language and being able to be fluent in 2 or 3 languages. So I'm just very glad everything's in English, just to ensure that I can help and contribute. But what we do, there's 13 countries in Europe. Hungary are a European country that are not currently in EUSA, but 13 of us, 6 other associations, and we try and share ideas. And what we tend to do, and this is maybe some of the information, so as I say, we met in 2017 for the first time, so we're up to our 9th meeting just recently. And these working groups provide us with brilliant information that we bring back. So I'll cover these in just a little bit more detail. The data, so each year we ask countries for the data of certain questions: market size, how many pools. We ask for often some drownings data. Do they have any figures, and are there any other sort of information they want to share? So there's some really useful information that we can get out to the media, just about how relatively safe we are, but also how important the industry is, both domestic pools, commercial pools, spas. It's all information that allows us to say why we should be listened to by decision makers, whether that's government or whether that's other decision-making bodies. So the data subgroup is really important. There's then an education subgroup, and the education subgroup, what we're trying to do, what have we personally benefited from? We did a benchmark against what everybody else was doing, and we found out where some of our gaps were, and we've tried to fill those. So we have some extra industry courses. There's a liner course, for instance, coming up later this month. It's being hosted at Certican's premises in Oxfordshire. So we deliberately put those industry courses in because we realised that others were doing something similar, but we didn't have something like that. So it's not a qualification, but it's tailored industry courses. But what we've also done this year, and you may have heard, we've done a pilot of an introductory course. So in partnership with ISPI, SPATA has been working to develop a domestic pool maintenance qualification. So it's basically a valeter's qualification. And we've done that because we realise that we want people to do the ISPI home study course, but it may be an initial quite high step up. So having an entry-level qualification gives that confidence to go on to higher forms of education, more detailed forms of education. So if you're not aware of the domestic pool maintenance qualification, please come and see us on the Industry Hub, or go and see Luke and Jason on the ISPI stand in the far side of the hall. But that's a direct result of us seeing what our colleagues were doing, realising we've got some really good qualifications and courses, but we were missing some as well. So that's been a helpful group. Our Australian and New Zealand colleagues look after that subgroup. In terms of environment, we all know how important it's becoming for customers. We know how important it is for some members of the trade, but we absolutely know that this is a key buzzword and a really important thing in government. So if we can't begin to do more to show our environmental credentials, we are going to get left behind a bit. So the environmental subgroup for the first 3 or 4 years looked at water. So that generally would be things like drought management strategies, how associations have gone to talk to their governments about how to, if you like, not pick on the pool industry. Very easy to say, you're a recreational activity, we shouldn't be needing you, so no, you can't fill your pools. But we spent many hours liaising with them to get right. There's a drought code of practice here in the UK. So when a water company goes into water restrictions, and there were at least 3 or 4 went last year into a drought management, there are set criteria as to what they should allow and what they can in some way temporarily ban. They call them temporary use bans or tubs, but we spent hours trying to make sure that businesses could continue, but maybe it was domestic customers that were a little bit more restricted. So we hope we've got the balance right, but we share that with our colleagues, and over the last 2 or 3 years we've been looking more at energy consumption. So that will be a big topic for us again this year, as to how we ensure that pools are becoming more efficient at energy usage, but also that message is getting out as well, that they are becoming better at that. There's also a marketing subgroup. So it's really important. We call it Pool Positive. And within that group, we're doing all sorts of sharing. So there might be leaflets that people have got, or campaigns. We shared a campaign that we did, and colleagues in the US were really interested in sort of doing something similar. So we're sharing ideas, sharing thoughts, seeing whether a campaign that works in Germany or Brazil can work here, noting some of the materials, possibly sharing those materials so that we take an English version of something in a different language. So the marketing subgroup is much newer, but it is something that we hope is going to help here in the UK. And my colleague in the BSPF and Pool Industry Promotions, or PIP, Sally Leslie Golding, she's a member of that subgroup, so she's learning from her colleagues and they're sharing ideas. So there's lots of things there that can come back. This one's more an internal thing, but we do a subgroup on basically benchmarking. But we look at what we offer as BSPF and SPATA, and then we find out what all our colleagues are doing elsewhere. And the reason this is important for yourselves is we might find something, our French colleagues, for instance, have got an insurance scheme. We had an insurance scheme for a while, but it became too costly. With just the premiums rising because insurance were going up generally. Nothing to do with our industry, but just generally. But that product is a really excellent one. It's one we'd like to introduce, but maybe there's something else. Maybe our colleagues have got some great award categories, so we'll borrow those and make those changes. But we're always learning from colleagues, and then whatever makes sense to bring back to the UK, we use. Now, in terms of other benefits that we've got that EUSA and WAPSA bring us here in the UK, those improving services, we're constantly fine-tuning what we do. We offer fact sheets and other things, and we've seen what our colleagues have done elsewhere, and we've brought some of those back. But those marketing messages about safety, so there's a WAPSA leaflet that we've done that explains some of the safety features. We've got our own things on safety, but all of those are key, and we hope that people selling swimming pools aren't saying they're dangerous. That would be silly, but we hope that people are being appropriate with the conversations around safety devices. So it's perfectly reasonable to say you've got a swimming pool, have you thought about a safety cover or a fence or an alarm? Have you got a lockable enclosure? Those types of conversations are really appropriate. So the more we can ensure that people are aware of it, the better. And we do that by sharing it at the world and European level. I mentioned SEN and SENELEC. So this has got nothing to do with the EU now, but SEN and SENELEC are based in Europe, and it's industry coming together to set standards. So it should be, as companies, that you're working to those standards. And the same with SENELEC for the electrical standards. Again, I'll go into a little bit more detail for both of them, but hopefully you're going to recognise some of those standards because they directly relate to domestic pools or commercial pools, and they are often dealing with safety features of pools. So it might be stopping suction entrapment. It might be the different dimensions that are required to prevent finger and toe entrapment or head entrapment. So those standards are really important. For BSPF and, well, certainly for Spartan members, BSPF have an opportunity for this, but Spartan members, we offer what's called BSOL, or British Standards Online. So there are 25 standards that our members can buy as a package, and they can view whenever they want. So that is a direct result. So we can't put everything in these standards into our own Sparta standards or BSPF standards, but we can ensure that our members have got direct access to here. So this is Europe providing knowledge and information. In terms of the SENELEC side, there's two different important things to be aware of. One is product standards, and the other is wiring regulations. So product standards, there's a whole series of those. The most obvious ones, there is a Whirlpool spa standard for all the electrical requirements. There's a sauna standard, which is also useful. And in terms of the wiring regulations, there's actually a harmonised standard, HD 60634, but the European and international standard we take and we call it BS 7671. So those of you in the industry who are aware of that, so the wiring regs, the 18th edition, is BS 7671. There's also international standards, so the same thing, ISOs and IECs. So the ISOs, I've given you one example on screen there. So there is an international standard for computer vision systems. So this is for pools with some kind of specific drowning detection system. And there's moves afoot at the minute to include in another standard many more different types of drowning detection systems. So that is a perfect example of where there's an international standard. And then on the right-hand side is one of the International Whirlpool Spa standard. So it's got the catchy name of 6335-2-60, so trips off the tongue, doesn't it? But those sorts of things are really important. And very often we find that manufacturers and installers haven't necessarily read these fully in depth as we might imagine they do. Some are brilliant, know it inside out, and they get it manufactured. But it's always worth bearing in mind and being knowledgeable on these types of topics. So these get developed at international, European level, but then we use them locally. Opens up different markets, opens up different opportunities. But as pool and spa professionals, if you're earning a living and you're not aware of these standards, you're potentially letting yourselves down, and you're potentially letting the industry down if you're not aware of what's being required and requested. So to give enough time for questions if there are any, I just want to very quickly summarise, which in a very short amount of time, I hope I've given you a little flavour of when we go to these meetings, whether we physically go or they're online, we're working with colleagues who share the same aspirations. We're trying to do the same thing for you. We're trying to bring knowledge and understanding. We're trying to set safety and performance standards. And if we can do it, there's economic benefits. So if you're, obviously for manufacturers, they want to sell into multiple countries, possibly multiple continents. So knowing what the standards are, as long as there's not many differences, then we can all do the same thing. But that knowledge then needs disseminating, and the reason we have workshops at SPATEX is to provide that knowledge in a bite-sized chunk, and then if there are other courses that you can go on, we'd really like to encourage that. So just in terms of the final couple of bits, I've hopefully left enough time now for questions. So does anyone have anything that they wish to say or wish to pick up? Brilliant, there's a microphone coming. Thanks, Julie.
Thanks for the talk, Chris.
Pleasure.
Just going back to the courses, hot tub technician course.
Yes.
Can I have a little bit more information about that? I assume it's different to the hot tub operator course, and is it delivered on site or remotely? Do you know?
Brilliant. That's a real question as well, so thank you for that question. The reason I think it's a real question, one of the tangible things that we've done by the relationship we've got, so this is now BSPF with our colleagues in the US, is there is a course in the US and Canada, the Certified Hot Tub Technician that you've mentioned. And at the time, BSPF was looking to put in another course. BSPF's got a site surveyor course, but it was looking to do a technician course. And rather than reinvent the wheel, what we did with Chris Brady from One Stop Spas, Chris was keen to run that course, but as a UK version, not with the American legislation, but based on their course. So we got together with the association in America at the time was called the APSP, Association of Pool and Spa Professionals, and then they merged with another organisation, and currently they're called the Pool and Hot Tub Association, the PHTA. So we borrow their CHTT course here in the UK. We've made it specific for English, for UK law in terms of the different countries and how it should work. And then we offer that course over 3 days with a 4th day for exam. And it's practical, so it's hands-on. It's normally in a showroom type venue. And what we also do is we've also worked with one of the electrical contractors called the NIC-EIC. And we've got CHTT as a generic course, really good. That qualification is available. And we've also got an electrical final connections qualification. So if people want 2 different courses to help cover them as technicians, they've got these 2 opportunities. And one is a qualification in the UK that BSPF has got with the NIC-EIC, and the other is a relationship that BSPF has got with the PHTA, with Chris as a tutor to offer that course, and he does quite a few courses during the year. So that's a really interesting example of a collaboration where we could have done our own thing, but a course was available and a relationship was struck between the UK and the USA to allow us to do that course much quicker than one we might have developed ourselves. So have you done it? Are you thinking of doing it?
Literally, while we've been here this week, the powers that be have employed someone to look after our hot tubs. So it's fresh in the mind. We spoke to a few hot tub companies about a few products, and just we mentioned in the courses then there was the hot tub technician one. A few of the guys have been on the hot tub operator one, but just that struck out. I'd like to get the person they've employed on that course.
I'm always delighted when we've got people wishing to do paid-for courses. So workshops are free, as you know, and some of the courses that we do, like I mentioned, the liner course that we're doing in a couple of weeks' time, they're all low cost, or in this case, no cost here today. But they're pretty good value for money, I would say. The CHTT is a recognised qualification. in the States and Canada, and we've made it our own here. The course that we do with the NIC-EIC is a recognised qualification, and any of those other courses hopefully give good knowledge. But all we can do is encourage. SPATEX is really, we always talk about the 3 E's. We talk about the exhibition itself. We want people to enjoy themselves, so it's the entertainment. But ultimately, it's the education. If we've got people who know what they do, they're safe. Just again, as one small anecdote, just with the time left, on the electrical qualifications course that we do, the final connections, part of the qualification is what's called safe isolation. So there's a way of ensuring that you lock off the electrical system so there's no chance of being harmed. And it's always very interesting when we ask the candidates coming on the course, have you ever been working on a hot tub and got a belt of electricity? And quite often, more than 50% of the hands go up. So they don't understand the danger of working, or they don't realise the harm they could put themselves in. By the end of the course, they're fully aware and know how to safely isolate and lock off. So it's really important for me. But thank you so much for that question. Any other bits anyone wants to cover? No? Okay. Well, if not, obviously a huge thank you for your time in today's show. I hope you get a chance to see a little bit more, ask a few questions of exhibitors, and that you'll be back again next year. But for now, I'm going to say thank you very much indeed. Thank you.